What did you want to talk about this morning, Juma?
So last week I did a kind of an in-depth topic on the two who's of content. So this week I want to keep it very simple, and I want to talk about a framework, which is the 111 framework for creating your first 10 videos. It's a very, very simple framework. It's not too complex, and it will help people who want to get started.
Right, especially CEOs.
Particularly CEOs, yes.
Yeah, this morning I want to talk about something that is big, but I'm going to approach it from an angle that's going to make it very manageable for this session. I want to talk about why brand strategy should come before your content calendar.
Why brand strategy should come before your content calendar. All right. I like that. I think that I already agree for some for reasons known and unknown. I agree. So already. All right, since my topic is kind of light, I'll jump in first, and then you can give them the heavy stuff at the end. Yeah. So let's get into that right about now. So last week's topic was the two who's of content strategy, which is what I spoke on. And last week I spoke on borrowed attention and reference I show speed. I felt like last week was a heavy episode, so I said, let me keep it light this week. And what I want to talk about this week is some practical things. So the content strategy is something that you have to do, you have to plan, but then at some point you're going to have to actually shoot videos or create the content. And I want to talk about that practical part. So there's a big assumption of if you have a content strategy and you have to create, if one of the things that you have to create is video, that you've decided one of your main types of content that you want to create is video, because not everybody needs video. And further, and more specifically, if one of the things that you have to create is short form video, there is a way that you want to create it. And of course, this will refer specifically to a person, a CEO, a business owner who wants to create a talking head video or a video with them on screen, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give you all a practical way to approach that. Now, based on my experience and talking to a ton of people, I've gotten feedback about what is the main thing that stops people from creating short form video that they know they have to create. So what in your mind do you think is the number one thing that professionals or business owners say that stops them from making videos?
Well, let me see if I can think about this from the perspective of the person in our partnership who is least likely to create video. And it's something we've been talking about for a while, that we need to create more content, we need to create more videos. So I'm going to take it from that perspective. I think I have experience in the level of procrastination that you are talking about. And I think there are a couple of reasons why people will do it. Some people are camera shy. Mm-hmm. Some people don't know what to say and they don't know how to approach it. So like they don't have like a clear point of view to approach issues. Some people just don't know how the process works, and that lack of information in the process kind of creates a hindrance. And they say, and ultimately it is an additional job, and people don't find the time. Well, I shouldn't say, you know how time works, right? You have to prioritize time. Mm-hmm. So I guess in their minds, it is not critical to the business. They haven't yet assigned a certain level of criticality to that issue. Mm-hmm. And so they don't make the time for it. But certainly they will make the time if the accountant calls and says XYZ in your banking information, they make the time. Right. Or if a client comes in and there's a big order, you make the time. But for some reason, some people still see marketing as an external function for somebody else to do. And they haven't made the connection of the importance of creating content, not just as a business, but particularly as a CEO or employees inside of the company. I think they haven't made that switch over to, this thing is critical to the success of the business, because certainly any CEO will make time for anything that's critical to the success of the business. So that mental jump or shift or change needs to take place.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it light, but you went so heavy. You went heavy there.
As I was thinking about it, yeah, it kind of came streaming out.
It came streaming out. No, those all those reasons are valid. I think I've done surveys on this, and the number one reason, the reason that normally rises to the top when you ask people why they don't do video, among all the other valid things that you just listed, is I don't know what to say. And that was like the second thing that you mentioned. I don't know what to say. So now that people don't want to do it, now that they're afraid, most people are not afraid. Some people are camera shy, but most people are not afraid. But most people don't know what to say. Now, the good thing about that is that if you create a content strategy, it would help with that, right? Because you would have your main topic that you want to talk about and your subtopics. So that will be part of your content strategy. But even after you have those main topics and you actually figure out, okay, these are the things I would like to say, these are the topics I want to speak on, there is actual execution that has to happen. There's the execution part of creating your videos. And it's not that that you don't want to do it or that you don't know what to say at that point, is that you just don't know how. The friction is really the enemy. The friction of not knowing how. It's like, this is hard for me to do because I just don't know how to do it yet. And I think for the most part, what people need is some tool or some system or some way to do it. And it kind of starts with a mental reset of sorts. Like if you think about it this way, it becomes easier to do. If you think about approaching creating your videos this way, it becomes easier to do. And I'm specifically talking about in the corporate context, not in the context of entertainment or jokes or those type of silly videos that people will make that has a purpose, which is entertain people. But I'm talking about for your business specifically. Mm-hmm. And if you start talking head part of it, then you can use this method I'm going to show you, this framework, and you can start off with that, and it will help you to get the videos out, your first 10 videos out.
Right.
So let's get to...
And 10 is an interesting number, but certainly getting a volume out is a big step towards getting into the production of something, and it allows you to learn a lot. So I like that you give a definite quantum that you want to shoot for from the very beginning, as opposed to just saying, well, let me just do one video and see what happens. Let me do 10 because I don't start to learn until maybe episode 4. And I don't start to get good until maybe episode 7. And I don't push my limits until actually episode 10. So yeah, I like that you talk about having that quantum to hit right at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's important because if we to take the example of, I've been doing a lot of research on why customers buy and how long it takes for customers to actually buy, because I know there's been something bouncing around the internet talking about you have to have, I think it's 8 touch points before a customer decides to make a purchase, 8 interactions with you. And that the history of that is wild. It came from Hollywood back in the early 1900s. It's a whole thing. There's no actual study on that, but the people who were promoting movies came up with that metric because they figured out that is what it took for them. But there's no strong data on it. But to this day, that has lasted. So getting to do something like 7 or 8 times and allowing that to become a part of your habits or part of your systems that you use to create stuff is a good thing. So 10 is a good number. Once you get past 7 and you get to 10, it becomes a lot easier. So that's why I set it at 10. But I want to acknowledge something. I want to acknowledge that every single person who has not created videos before, even the high-level CEOs and the business owners, they would probably get a bit stiff when they look at a camera, when they have to face down, as one of my friends put it, this big glass eye of the camera, right? They would get a bit stiff about it. And some people think they need I need a studio, I need a teleprompter, and I need like a 3-act structure. So they try to complexify the thing. And the more you make it complex, the less likely you are going to do it, the more complex it is. So you want to make it simpler. So I'm giving you permission to unfancy the whole process. Don't make it too fancy. You just want to make it practical. You want to make it kind of scrappy, and you want to just get it done, at least for the first 10 videos. And after you get that out the door, then you can try to improve it in different ways, right? So let's get into the framework that will help you with this now. The framework is called the 1-1-1 method, right? The 1-1-1 method. And each of those ones stands for something that would help you get the videos out. So let's talk about the first one. So the first one stands for 1 topic. The first one stands for one topic. And this having one topic is designed to keep you focused. So the concept behind that is you don't want to complicate creating the video. You don't want to talk about a ton of different things. You don't want to introduce things that are not relevant to the topic that you're talking about. You want to stay very, very focused. And the action you have to take with that is to pick one specific point of view, one insight, or one thing that's currently firing you up, that's in your space that you care about.
Is this, just to clarify, is this one topic per video?
Yes. One topic per video. So every time you come to create a video, you have to know exactly the topic that you're going to speak on. And of course, inside the topics, you could have subtopics. Normally I say one topic and I say 3 to 5 points that you want to make. But if you have not gotten to the point where you want to break down your video into 3 to 5 points, having the one topic gets you started. So, for example, a lot of people were talking about iShowSpeed. Our last podcast, we referenced iShowSpeed. Maybe one topic could be iShowSpeed in the Caribbean, and you talk about that and how it relates to your insurance business, whether or not he had liability insurance for all the things he was doing while he was here, and, different things. So you make it related to what business you have, but speak on that one single thing. And that's all you're going to be talking about for that particular video. So don't complicate the video. Don't make it don't put too much of things inside of it. Write down the topic, the one thing, and then you speak on that particular thing very specifically, right? And here's how you're going to approach it. If you can't explain it in one sentence, then you haven't narrowed it down enough yet. If you can't explain the topic in one sentence, then you haven't narrowed down the topic enough yet. If it takes you too long to describe the topic, to explain what it is, then you haven't narrowed it down yet. If it's this and this and this and this, if there are too many conjunctions, there are too many commas, then you know it's too big. You just want to be able to say it in one sentence, and you want to focus on that particular topic to start off with. So that is the first one. All right, so the second one that we want to deal with is something that will give you a goal. It will help constrain you. And the constraint that we're going to use in this instance is time. So the second one is 1 minute. Is 1 minute, right? So the concept behind that is that, usually when you're beginning to create videos, like how long the video is a problem for you. Like length is the enemy of the beginner. Anytime you have to do something for too long, then it becomes a problem. And a practical example of that is if you're going to the gym or you're doing anything physical, let's just say you want to start running. You don't expect to run a marathon when you start off. You actually start to walk, and then you intersperse the walking with running. And then over time, you're able to run longer and longer distances, and then you're able to do something like a half marathon or a marathon. The same concept applies for creating your content. When you start creating content, nobody expects you to jump in and do a 2-hour podcast. It will be hard and near impossible. And even if you do it for that length, the quality is not going to be great. So where you want to start off is at a short time so that you get accustomed to talking and speaking on a particular topic. So you want to constrain yourself. And the reason we are picking 1 minute is because 1 minute is a very, very, very nice length of time for you to get the topic out, long enough for you to speak on it while staying within the constraints of keeping people's interest and also applying that to any platform that has video. So a minute is good. So TikTok only monetizes from 1 minute and over. YouTube Shorts love it. It could be used on LinkedIn. It could be used as an Instagram Reel. 60 seconds, 1 minute is a really excellent benchmark for how you want to create your short form content. Of course, you can go longer than that, but for this particular method, you want to do the 1 minute. So it gives you a goal. It gives you a time constraint that you want to stay within. And it gives you a clear finish because your video is tied to a time you have to take. So you're not pressured to keep on going. So when you get to that 60-second mark, I can cut off now. And if you go over, it's fine. You can edit it down, but you're aiming for that thing. So even if let's just say you write a cursory script, then the script, when read out, has to be around this length. And the action behind that is that your final edit must be under 60 seconds or under. Yeah.
I like the concept of constraints. I think that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me in that particular part of the framework. Sometimes people see constraints as an obstacle to producing something, but a lot of time constraints actually pushes you into innovation and creativity, and allows you to actually do a better job of the task. So I like constraints. I really like constraints. In this case, the constraint is time. So then you have, if you consider that, then you have to be more on point. You have to clarify your ideas. You have to distill your ideas. You're not allowed to have any kind of fluff, and that should make for a better, more impactful video.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that it does put you in a place where you have to make very specific decisions about how you're creating the content, and it cuts out all of the waffling or the going off course or the going down the side missions and all those different things. So the why behind it, as I explained before, is that it forces you to get to the point. It's much easier to commit to a 60-second sprint in the form of a video than, let's just say, a 10-minute or a 60-minute marathon. And also it fits perfectly within obviously the short form content that is most popular today, which I explained before, right? Where most people are consuming content. So that's why you want to have 1 minute. So far we've spoken about the one topic. We've spoken about 1 minute in the 2 ones. And the final one that we want to have when you want to create your first set of videos is that you want to do this video in 1 take. So people might understand what 1 take means. If you've been around films at all, you would know that every time the director says action, and at the end, when he says cut, that's a take. So imagine you're recording a video and somebody says action. You start to record the video, and when you get to your 60 seconds, somebody else says cut. That's a take. In between action and cut, you are not stopping. In between action and cut, you are not stopping. So when you hit that record button, you are not going to hit the stop on the record button again until you finish recording that video. And you have to get accustomed. You have to build the muscle. So the concept is stop hitting the stop button. That's the concept. Stop hitting the stop button. Stop pressing the button to record. And then as soon as you make a mistake, you hit stop again. Just let it run, and that you're trying to get the thing out. It gives you momentum to get it out. So the action is hit record and don't touch it until you've said all that you need to say. If you stumble, pause, take a breath, and repeat the last sentence. That's the action you want to take.
I was about to ask about that. What do you do if you've made mistakes?
Yeah. If you make a mistake during it, and you will make mistakes. I mean, to this day, I still make mistakes. I say things wrong. I mispronounce words. I stumble over my words. And all I do is I just pause. You go back and you repeat the sentence. And sometimes I will repeat the same sentence 10 times.
So is this pause with the recording running? So you pause on the recording running, or you pause the recording?
No, you don't pause the recording. You let it run. Let the recording run, right? And the reason you're doing that is that you don't want to have to think about having to stop it. That breaks your momentum. Having to stop it and start back, stop it and start back. It breaks your momentum. So you want to just leave it, let it record. You know what you said before. You say the sentence over again in a way that you think is good, and you continue on. And what tends to happen when I'm doing an edit, if I've said a sentence 3 or 4 times, I know the last one is the best one. I just jump to the last one and I delete all the rest. I'm not even going to listen to it. I just jump to the last sentence and delete all the rest of takes that I did, because I know the last one is the best one. Yeah.
So I was about to ask that. So if you do it that way, you will have to do some editing.
Correct. Yeah. And at any rate, if you're just starting out making videos, you're going to be doing a lot of editing. Trust me. You're going to be doing a lot of editing. There's no way to get away from that, because you have to develop the habit of being able to record properly. People who have developed the habit, who have gotten really good at doing these one-take wonders, they have done the work of putting it in and recording multiple times. So they know what to do. They know how to do it. But you who are just learning how to get your voice out, You're going to have to say things multiple times in different ways and figure it out. And over time, you will see your transformation. So after you get past your first 10 videos, then your next 10 videos into 20 and so on and so forth. By the time you done approaching 100 videos, you wouldn't have to do as much takes. You could do the videos in one take and it wouldn't even be a thought. But at this beginning stage, bet your bottom dollar, a lot of your time is going to go into editing your videos because of multiple takes. So that is a given. So the why behind this is that the secret sauce for building confidence, right? This is what it is. This is the secret sauce for building confidence. When you stop and restart every time you trip over a word, you're training your brain to fear mistakes. You're training your brain to break every time you make a mistake. When you keep it rolling, you realize that mistakes are just edit points for later. That's all they are. You make a mistake, you're going to edit it later. It's not such a big deal because people tend to beat up themselves when they make mistakes. You don't want to make that part of your life as a creator, as a CEO, as a business owner who's making content, is that you're going to have to make mistakes in your recording and you're just going to have to edit it later. If you have an editor, let them take care of it. But you don't worry about those things. You just get the recording done, right? Yeah. And that's what you want to do. That's the third one. So let me just talk real quickly before I finish off as to why all of this is important, right? Why are the 3 1s the 1-1-1 method, which is one topic, 1 minute, and one take? Why is that important? Well, the reason it's important and the reason it works is because this isn't about producing the best video you'll ever make. It's about producing your first video or your first 10 videos. That's the whole purpose of this. Yeah. You want to get the first video out and then you want to get the other 9, get your first 10 videos out. So you're building the habit over building perfection. You're building the muscle of creation. And once you get this done 10 times and the camera stops being like a thing and starts being a tool, because that's what it is. It's just a tool, right? It stops being like a thing. This camera is intimidating me. And all you know, that's like if you go to dig a hole and you're intimidated by the shovel. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You can't be intimidated by the tool. It's just a tool that you're using to do something, right? And once the camera starts being a tool, then you earn the right to be fancy later. For now, you just want to be present and you want to be able to record and get it done. And so in summary, don't forget, it's one topic, which keeps you focused. It's 1 minute, which gives you a goal. And it's one take, which gives you the momentum you need in order to get your videos out. Yeah, and I'll stop there.
Yeah, I like that. One take. I like the last one. So one topic
keeps you focused.
To talk about, keeps you focused. 1 minute to give you a goal, and one take to maintain momentum.
Yeah, it gives you momentum. Yeah, that's it.
I like that. Very good.
All right. So what do you want to talk about, Ayinde?
All right. So I mentioned why brand strategy should come before your content calendar. Branding is something that is, I don't know how much you know about how much I'm into branding. So like if it was anime, for example, the way some people geek out about anime, that's how I geek out about branding. If there was one marketing topic hill that you wanted me to die on, that would be it. Branding would be the hill I'd die on.
What do you mean by branding, though?
So, well, that's a good question. So, what is a brand and what is branding? So, I have a quotation here that I'm going to read out from a fairly contemporary. I didn't want to go all the way back to Cutler to give you a definition. So, Cutler is good. Anybody wants to read a Cutler, read a Cutler. But I have a quotation here from Seth Godin. And I like the way he puts it. He says a brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for the consumer's decision, and decision is important there, to choose one product or service over another. That's what he's saying as a brand. But it reinforces my position that I've always held. Brands live in your mind. So your brand doesn't live in your logo, on a letterhead, on a billboard. Your brand lives in the minds of your consumers and the minds of your target audience. So when you think about your brand, you have to understand, well, what do people think about me? because they're going to take all these expectations, memories, stories, relationships, and use those things to make a decision based on what they think about you. So the job of a marketing professional is to influence the way people think, because they're going to think something whether you want to or not. So some people think, oh, I don't do branding. I don't need to do any branding. Well, it's being done. It's one of those things that happen whether you involve yourself in it or not, because people are going to hold certain opinions about you and about your company. And then that becomes what your brand is. The thing people usually think about brands, which is like your logo, your colors, or even your brand voice and so on, those are aspects of how you communicate the brand. But at the end of the day, the brand lives in the minds of the consumer. Is that what you thought branding was?
Well, I have my own definition for branding. Well, I tend to land in the Martin Neumeier camp of branding, which is your branding is just a gut feeling, or your brand is a gut feeling, and branding is the
But whose gut?
and of the customer.
Oh, okay. Well, we're saying the same thing.
Of the customer, yeah. So it's the same thing basically. I tend to talk about it as the thing that people don't forget about you. That's your brand.
Right.
Right. So they have an interaction, they go away, and whatever remains with them, that's your brand.
Yeah.
Right. So
And it remains, so we're saying the same thing. So yeah, I like that way of putting it. Thing that stays with you, the thing that is clings to you. But it's also how they're going to describe you and how they see you. So it's a way that we as a society would label certain entities in the society. So just like a company could have a brand, you have a brand. And I know Jamila is really into that. So
right.
yeah, a little plug for Jamila Bannister here. But so individuals will have their brands. So even if you're not in marketing or you're not in business, you have a brand, people know you as a certain thing. Or this fella here, he real dependable. Or this fella, he's real creative. And you get 5, 10 people to say the same thing about you. Then that is your brand, because that's what they think about you. Let me kind of go on, because I don't want to spend too much time on this last segment here. So let me just kind of talk, before I go on to talk about brand and the content calendar, let me talk about 3 things that illustrate the importance of a brand, so that we will know how important your brand is before you get into content marketing, before you get into your content strategy. Understanding your brand strategy is important. One, your brand is going to produce a certain level of competitive advantage.
Okay.
It's one of those competitive advantage sources that is not copyable by your competitors. We live in a world today where we have a plethora of choice. We have a bunch of choice. Everybody could, if it's a camera, you have 100 options. If you have shoes, a million options. You just have choice. And everybody's trying to talk to you, communicate to you, and everybody's developing and innovating. And so what happens is that maybe 100 years ago, you had an actual physical advantage from a feature, from a patent, from a supply chain. You had like actual hard competitive advantages. A lot of companies now do not have that kind of moat or that kind of protection. And one of the last forms of competitive advantage that you could really build is to build a strong brand. That, for a lot of companies, that produces a moat that is difficult to navigate. If you think about the tech industry, for example, there's almost no tech feature that you could come out that will not be on your competitors' devices within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There is no tech feature.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things you might come out first with, or you might name in a certain way. So like if you take Apple, for example, what Apple has become very good at doing is branding their features. So rather than just coming out and saying, oh, we have a stronger screen, scratch protection, scratch proof screen, they will brand it. And well, I know Gorilla Glass is the Corning brand, but they will brand it. I can't remember what brand they would use.
I don't know. They would use some like Apple Crystal Glass or something. They'll make up something. And
then the competition isn't my scratch proof glass against your scratch proof glass. It's my Gorilla Glass against whatever you call that. And so they create a moat around their features because of the strength of brand. So they're using branding to actually give them that competitive advantage over and above the actual technical superiority. Because it's actually there is very little technical superiority. The
Yep.
supply chains are very much shared. The innovation is easy to copy. And the thing that provides protection and gives you a competitive advantage and allows you to resonate with your customer would be your brand. The other thing is relationship. I always talk about the importance of relationship. And you know, at Relate Studios, relationship marketing is very important for us. Your brand is the thing that allows people to have a relationship with you and your company. And I always give the example of Eclipse Eli, because I used to work with Eclipse Eli. So I go back to that because I think it's a good example of how you utilize your brand as your company grows, because his business is producing clothing. But the way he started out was customized clothing. So he would make suits, he would make clothes for you. And in the beginning, his relationship with his customers is a direct relationship. Because you have 100 customers, you know all 100 customers. You know their size, you know what they like, you know where to put their buttons, you know exactly what they want. So that's a direct human relationship that you're having. You could probably extend that to maybe like 300-400. Some of the research says that the human mind could only maintain strong relationships up to about 300 relationships. So after that, you have diminishing returns. So people aren't able to have that direct relationship. And as he began to grow the business, more clients, more outlets, that kind of thing, it's difficult to maintain that one-on-one relationship. Now, certainly with some clients, he's going to have that. But for the majority of the clients, you're not going to be able to do that. And if you take that to the next step, let's say that business scales into a multinational design brand. There is no way for the man Eclipse Eli to have a relationship. The way you have that relationship is with your brand. So I shop on Amazon. I have zero relationship with Jeff Bezos. Never met the man. You've never met him. But we have a relationship with Amazon.com. So if you want to build strong relationships, you have to pay attention to your brand, because that's who your customers are going to have the relationship with. And just quickly, the third thing that is important for brands is the ability to charge a premium. A strong brand gives you a certain level of brand equity. People will spend more for things that they know about and for things that aligns with their values. And that's what your brand should aim for. Your brand brings awareness, but it also communicates a set of values that people want to align with. So those three things kind of illustrate the importance of having a brand. Now, let's bring that back to content marketing and content calendar. But before I do that, anything you wanted to add on that?
So many things. I have so many questions and things to add, but I'll keep it simple. Well, I'll touch on one thing. And so what is your take, Ayinde, on the rise of the personal brand over the past decade? And how does that complement or possibly oppose the development of your company's brand? How do we reconcile those things? Because I have had experience with that, and I want to know your take on that from the branding perspective. I know this might be a whole heavy different topic, but if you can just touch on it briefly.
Yeah, that's a deep question that will require some research and consideration. But if I think about it, I think it's a good thing, the rise of the personal brand. It kind of came alongside the rise of social media and influencers and personalities. But if I am honest, it actually goes all the way back to reality TV. Reality TV produced the first set of people who gained notoriety being themselves.
Right. So they weren't known for something.
Right. They weren't known for being good at sports. They weren't known for acting. They weren't even known for building a very successful business. They were known for being themselves on a reality show. Now, we know most of those reality shows are scripted to some level, but I think that was the beginning of putting in the minds of people the importance of managing your personal brand, or at least it opened up what had already been going on with actors, because actors are very deliberate. Celebrities are very deliberate. Like even choosing a movie, they think about, well, how do people perceive me? And sometimes they want to change their personal brand because maybe they came up in kid shows and now they want to switch over to do more adult stuff. So maybe that was always inside of that industry, but the reality show thing kind of brought it to the everyday person. Hey, if you build your brand, it can have an impact on your life. And you ask specifically as to how it relates to your business and if it helps. I think in most cases, building a strong personal brand is going to help your business. And I think it's mostly positive. Unless, of course, your personal brand is diametrically opposed to your company brand, in which case I think you probably need to make a decision. But otherwise, you just create confusion. But most times, I think building a strong personal brand helps your business in the long term. But that's a real good topic. We should probably
we should go deeper on that. We should go deeper on that. Just to add to what you said, I remember one example of personal brands having to change your personal brand from an actor. Well, some people out there who are looking at this live will know the actor Ryan Gosling, right? Very popular actor. Recently was in a movie called Hail Mary. Very, very good movie. He was known as a rom-com guy, like romantic comedy guy. And at some point he's like, I don't want to be known as that anymore. And he actually started, I think, and I believe it was him, he started to turn down anybody who came, and it was millions of dollars, and he was just turning it down because he didn't want to be known as that anymore. Until one day he got a break and he got some kind of drama to do. And it changed his career. But he took a big risk because he was known as this type of guy. So he was branded as this. And the same will apply for any actor or athlete or whatever. Once you get known for something, it's really hard not to be known for that thing anymore. You have to deliberately take steps to change that. I just wanted to insert that in there. But go ahead with the rest of the stuff you were talking about.
Yeah, I like that topic. I think we need to kind of dig into that because I'm getting a bunch of ideas and thoughts coming to my mind. Like, what about people who build a brand decidedly to encompass more than one thing so that they could do anything that they want, kind of thing, which is what Kanye has been trying to do. He's trying to say anything creative he could do. That's his position, and that's how he's tried to build his brand. People always try to put him in the brand box of producer, and he's like, no, I'm not a producer, I'm a rapper, and I'm an artist, and I can make shoes, and I can do high fashion, and I can do buildings, and I can do architecture. The man even wants to do communities and cities. And so that's another aspect of personal brand. How can you build your personal brand that it actually extends to more than just one thing? Because a lot of branding is about consistency and being known for one thing. But then what about people like Kanye? But anyway, we're gonna come back to that. That's a very interesting topic. We should kind of figure out how to come back to that and how to have some discussion around that.
Yeah.
All right. So brand and the content calendar. So what happens with most people is that you think about posting and you ask yourself what to post. And you first have to decide what you stand for. You first have to decide what your brand is. Yeah. So what happens if you don't consider your brand is that you produce a lot of content and you look very busy and your platform has a lot of content coming down on it. However, you're not building anything specific. And so you're not building loyalty, you're not establishing a clear positioning, and you're not communicating your brand. So your brand strategy then has to become the foundation of your content calendar. So let me just give a few practical questions you could ask and answer in order to help develop your brand strategy in a way that it impacts your content calendar. So before you develop any content, get clarity on who you are. Yeah? Who are you? Your values. I'm laughing. That's a family joke I'm laughing at. Sorry. So you have to determine and communicate your values, your personality, your positioning. So what your brand values are. And a lot of times you think about a brand, you think about it like a person. So your brand also has a personality. If you want to, the clearest example of that is it Wendy's UK? It's like,
Wendy's is a good example. A good example is also Duolingo, but those are the popular ones.
right. So where you have a clear brand personality. So you have to be clear about your brand values, your brand personality, and your brand positioning. How do you position your brand in the market? So you could position as number one, you could position on a feature, you could position on an emotion. So Volvo's position is the safest car in the world. That's not the exact language, but that's how people will know them, the safest car in the world. BMW is all about driving experience. So when you produce content for those brands, you produce content inside of those. So your content pillars will reflect the positioning. Yeah. So that's the first thing you have to clarify as with regards to your brand, what your values are, what your brand personality is, and what your brand positioning is. Then you want to clarify who you serve. So it's kind of like what you were talking about last week, Juma, with
The two who's, yeah.
who you are and who you serve.
Yeah.
So who you serve, not just the demographic, but the psychographics of your target audience. And you cannot get away from the importance of understanding your target audience and understanding who you are, who your customers are. That's the beginning point for any marketer. If you say, I am a marketer, it automatically means you have to start in the market. Yes, you're going to first pay attention to who you are as the first who, but your very next thing is who am I trying to sell this thing to? Who am I trying to connect with? Who am I trying to build a relationship with? Because their behavior online, their behavior in the real world, the way they think, the way they act, their preferences will then influence your entire marketing strategy, including your content. Yeah. So you want to be very clear about your target audience. Yeah. So you want to know who they want to become, who they are, and talk to them about their fears, about the things that they want to build in their lives. So you create content in line with those things.
Right.
Yeah. Then the next question you'll ask yourself is, what do you stand for? The one thing that you want to own in the audience's mind. And we just talked about that, right? So brands kind of try to own one thing. And a good way of describing what that one thing is the whole issue of evoked sets. You ever heard of that term before, Juma, of evoked sets?
No.
So in any market, you have a number of brands operating in the market. So all the brands in the market is the total set. You remember sets from school, right?
Yes, sets, yes.
Sets and Venn diagrams and
brackets, you know.
Yeah, things we didn't really necessarily like. But anyway, so the total set is all the brands. Yeah. So then as a consumer, you have your awareness set. Those are the brands you know about. Then you have your consideration set. Those are the brands you will consider buying in order to satisfy your want or your need. But then there's a set called the evoke set. The evoke set is a particularly interesting set of brands because these are brands that are so strongly built that all I have to do is mention the category and you think about the brand. That's how strong those brands are. And those brands live inside of the evoke set of your mind. So if you tell me about, if you mention, so for example, fast car, that just a brand just jumped into everybody's mind. That brand has spent time building that position and being very clear about that. So they own that inside of your mind. For some people it'll be different, but for others it will be the same and they own that. So that's evoked. So a certain trigger or evocation brings that brand to mind. And that's how strongly you want to build your brand. So that I could just mention one thing, premium coffee, for example. And a bunch of people thinking Starbucks, but that's a trick one because a bunch of people are also thinking Nescafe Gold. And a whole other set of coffee snobs are thinking, what are these people talking about? They're crazy because they're thinking Jamaica Blue, Kenyan something. They're thinking really premium coffee. But brands have to own that thing inside of the person's mind. So what do you stand for? Because that will then inform your content calendar, things that go into inside of your content. It will even inform when you post and how you post. Yeah. So be very clear about what you stand for and what is the one thing you own in the minds of your consumer. Yeah. And that is referred to as the evoke set. So you want to live inside of, even if the target audience is not yet, sorry, not the target audience, even if people are not yet in the target audience, but they will still think this thing about you. That's how strong the brand is. So I am not in the market for a Porsche Cayenne, but you could get me to think about that by saying certain words. I'm not in the market for a Rolls Royce, but if I say high-end luxury, customizable car, Rolls Royce is going to come to your mind. And it will come to my mind too. But that comes from owning that one thing in the audience's mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have some thoughts there.
No, you're right. You're right. Because when you said fast car, I thought about a certain brand, and I was thinking about different things, like saying like toothpaste or smartphone, or I mean, there's only one brand coming to mind when you say smartphone.
Right.
So yeah, that's very true. The Evoke brand. I was just thinking, I had a thought of, so the Evoke brand might be one word that is very broad, right? Mm-hmm. So if you say smartphone, or you say soap, or you say city, right? Mm-hmm. If you say city, a city popped in your head, and I know what city you're thinking about, right? Because there's some cities around the world that people will always look to as, this is what a city means, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. But then I'm thinking about, it's almost like a keyword. It's like you're doing AEO or SEO, which is that as you add more onto the description, then your brand could probably get mentioned in that way. So if you say, instead of saying soap, if you say liquid laundry soap, laundry detergent, then it moves from just being a generic soap to something like maybe like a Tide or something of that sort. Or or if you say toothpaste for sensitive teeth, it moves from being like just toothpaste, which might be a Colgate, to like a Sensodyne. So it depends on it's almost like SEO for human beings.
I like that link you're making to SEO and your brand.
It's interesting. I was just thinking about that. I say, well, if there's a big category, there has to be a sort of definers that in people's minds, as they get closer and closer to making a decision, that tells them what to choose. And so it might not be broad. They might be looking for something specific. So location might be a thing that might define it, right? Size of a business that might define it. Price might define it. You have a whole set of definers that you can insert into that helps you make that choice as well.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. SEO for real humans. But SEO is supposed to be for humans anyway, right?
Correct, yeah.
But it kind of shows a link between your brand positioning and the one thing you want to own in the audience's mind, and your SEO, and your keyword strategy, and being able to talk to your target audience about the thing that is important to them. So it's like toothpaste is not really the thing that is important. The thing that is important is toothpaste for sensitive teeth. So the ability to kind of drill down into who exactly your target audience is and what kind of language they're using and how they're talking to one another and what they're thinking about. Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. And not just SEO. Let me just insert, you have AEO and GEO, which AEO and GEO is the same thing. People would try and
just clarify that for the folks.
So AEO is answer engine.
Let's start with SEO.
SEO is search engine optimization, which is when, people know it. Let's call it a Google search. It'll just be generic. When you type in a term in Google, if you can find your result comes up on the first page of Google, that used to be a major thing. There's about 10 results. If you could be in the top 3, under the ads, because there are ads, then that's a good thing. Now, because of AI, you're getting AI summaries at the top of your web page, so which means that the AI is going out and finding the information and pulling it into these summaries. And that is called answer engine optimization, AEO. And some people call it generative engine optimization, which is GEO. Answer engine optimization and generative engine optimization is basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing. And so, that's a whole other topic we could get into on another time concerning that, because that's something I've been researching on. But it's like, it's supposed to be human. It's supposed to think the way you think. Whoever's listening to this right now, it's supposed to match the way you think about things. So it's not supposed to be to rank your website only, but it's supposed to speak to how you would think about buying something or getting a product or knowing where to go. And that's the main thing about it. Yeah.
All right, good. So just one more thing in clarifying, one more thing that you need to clarify. What does your brand sound like? So the tone of your brand, the language of your brand, the words that you use, this is the last filter that we want to apply before you begin to create your content. So your content has to pass through all of these filters. Your content has to pass through the filter of who you are, what your brand values are, personality, positioning. It has to pass through who your target audience is. Who are you talking to? The demographics, psychographics of your target audience. It has to pass through the filter of what do you stand for in the minds of the audience and the consumer. And finally, it has to pass through the filter of what should you sound like? What do you sound like? If you have a personality, you sound a certain way and you want to maintain that. We mentioned Wendy's. Wendy's comes to mind for the irreverent tone and the irreverent language. And it's funny, just last night, I was talking to one of my students, asked me about a new trend where they do a millennial version of the ad and then they do a Gen Z version of the ad. I don't know if you saw that.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
So companies are picking up on the trend. And the funny thing about the Gen Z ads, they tend to just use slang. It's funny because millennials had slang, Gen X had slang, but for some reason the ads not all the ads, but for some reason this meme that's going around, the millennial ads are very perfect, good sounding copywritten type content, and then they just have slangs on the other side of it.
On Gen Z.
On the Gen Z side of things. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what you have to decide. Am I going to sound like the millennial? Am I going to sound like a Gen Z? Am I going to sound off the cuff? Am I going to sound serious? And all of that ties in with your brand. Yeah. So you don't want to just follow a trend and just jump on a bandwagon, but you have to be clear about what your brand is and then communicate that. So every piece of content filters through these 5 things. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I have so many thoughts on that, boy. There's actually a person who I wanted to talk about, a real life example of somebody on LinkedIn who I know personally, who I find that his brand has shifted. He's made a decision to shift his brand into a particular place, and it's clear. I can't talk about that now, but I think, like, based on what we spoke about earlier and all the different thoughts we are having, we should probably do an episode on that specifically. To talk about that. Yeah.
All right. So just to wrap up today's episode.
What did we learn today? Right. Yes.
No, before we get to what did we learn today, just a practical order of operations. First thing you should do is define your brand positioning. Before you get into your content strategy and your content calendar, define your brand positioning. Who you are, for whom, why it matters. Identify your content mission. We are XYZ, we help XYZ audience do, feel, become X through our content. So kind of define that brand mission and then choose 2 to 3 content pillars that directly express your brand values. So for example, we talk a lot about videos for CEOs. We talk a lot about relationship, and those things are part of our brand. Yeah. And then you build your content calendar. Define first, identify your mission, choose content pillars that express your brand values, and then build out your content calendar.
Right. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Excellent.
So that's a good stuff. So let's summarize what we learned today before we sign off for today.
What did we learn today? So I'll keep since this was meant to be very simple, I'll just say, get cracking on making your first 10 videos. In order to make it, use the 1-1-1 method, which is one topic, which will keep you focused. You have 1 minute, do it in 1 minute, 60 seconds, which will give you a goal, a time constraint, and help you get it done. And the last one is do it in one take. Don't stop. Don't hit the stop button once you start. Let the momentum take you. Record till it's done. So that is in a nutshell what the 1-1-1 method is. And for your topic on branding, so many thoughts came up. So many different thoughts came up. But what I would say is that knowing your brand is, or endeavoring to discover what your brand is and to communicate that to your customers is critically important for the success of your business. It's critically important for the success of your business, especially in a world where, especially in a world where there is so much content and so much AI generated middle of the road vanilla content at that. You going to say something?
No, I was going to make a joke about fast-paced world.
In a fast-paced world. Recently, oh my goodness. Anyway, there's so many different little things firing off in my head. But yes, in a state of the internet and social media and marketing where that is the case, the brand is the only defensible position, as Ayinde would say. It is your moat. Yeah. It is your moat. It is your moat. If you don't have it, then you just blend in like everybody else. And you realize that the companies that will survive in the future are not the commoditized companies, are the companies that people remember.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot to say about brand, but obviously we don't have time. Just to reinforce the important thing. So we know the brand lives inside of the minds of the consumer. It's not necessarily something that is held in your hand. Those things are expressions, but the brand lives in the mind of the consumer. Different ways we could describe that. Why is the brand important? Competitive advantage, like you just mentioned, allows you to build long-term profitable relationships and allows you to develop brand equity, which basically the main benefit of brand equity is you can charge more. It also gives other benefits like time to deal with threats and so on. But basically, brand equity means you charge more for the same thing. And the filter you want to develop, the filter for all of your content so that you don't just end up pushing out a bunch of things that don't help build your brand and don't help build long-term relationship. Your filter is first who you are, your values, your personality, your positioning. Secondly, who your customer is, what their demographic is, what is important to them, what their fears are, what their psychographics are. And then what do you stand for? Or what is the thing that you own in the audience's mind so that when they describe a category, that thing is evoked inside of their mind. You want to move into that evoked set for that particular important thing. And then the last filter is, what do you sound like? What does your brand sound like? What's the tone, the language? What words would you avoid? And apply that filter to all of your content before going out and building out your strategy and posting. Yeah. So just to summarize, the practical order of operations: define your brand positioning, identify your content mission, choose content pillars, build your calendar.
Excellent. Good. Excellent stuff. So thanks everyone for joining us for this episode of the It's Good to Relate podcast. Remember, you can get all the episodes at itsgoodtorelate.com. For everyone who's still on, we appreciate you. Thank you for the comments, particularly on Instagram. And we'll talk to you soon, Ayinde.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Be safe, and we'll see you next week.